All right, what's up, my homies? I feel like I should say that because it's Super Bowl Sunday. Anyway, I'm gonna get started. I want to offer us a Sunday morning illustration session. Today's topic, I want to discuss all of our mediums that are available to us, and I'm going to start off with paper. So this is kind of really the anchor of our artwork, and we will work based off of the medium that we choose to work with for our, in this case, our illustrations are croquis drawings. And I just want to set the precedent now that this is not a limitation. So while we choose the paper, we want to be thoughtful about why we're choosing the paper. So I'm going to show first, this is probably my favorite paper to work with. It's pretty universal. This is a vellum Bristol pad. So the paper here has texture to it. It's not flat. This is a medium weight. So this can handle a lot. Pencils, a bit of marker, and very light watercolors. So this is probably my primary pad that I like to work with. However, if I know I want to work with markers, I will swap over to a marker paper. And this here is super smooth. This, you can see, is very thin. You can probably see my hand through it. But that's not to say that this doesn't do its job well. So marker paper, the whole purpose of it is it will not bleed through to the backside. So if I take this and color very hard, it doesn't appear to soak through. Super cool. And then this pad here is vellum Bristol, plus it's got a smooth side on the back, so it's just kind of a combo pad, which is nice if you have just one pad you want to carry around. This is bound, so you can't remove your pages and make them loose leaf, but very universal to be able to have two papers available to you at once. And then last but not least, this is my watercolor pad here. So this is cold pressed, so it has a little more texture to it. Most of these are made out of cotton. Some have wood pulp in them. Water paper color is super neat. It actually has a sizing in it, which is kind of like a glue, it's a bond. I do have a little mini canvas over here. So just to relate to sizing is usually what you'd put over a canvas so that your paints don't soak through the actual canvas itself. So same with our watercolor paper, it has that sizing in it to kind of halt, again, any of that watercolor bleeding through if I were to actually just work from my pad alone rather than removing a page. And I know I mentioned cold pressed here. So cold pressed will always have a texture to it, whereas a hot press will be more smooth. So it allows just for finer lines, whereas this one, definitely the water will tend to run a bit more into the ridges, but neither is better than the other. It's just all preference. Okay, I'm gonna work just a vellum sheet to go through everything. Okay, so a pencil is not a pencil. So most of us in school worked with number 2 pencils, so you've probably heard that often. I've got some graphite pencil leads here. This one's probably graphite as well. Okay, I'm just gonna divide my graphite from my charcoal. So these will have notes on them whether they are a B or an H. So my H here is a hard pencil, so I'll just put H for hard. So it's a very hard lead. You can see it's a little bit lighter. Definitely have good control. That was quite a bit of pressure and force that I applied here, as opposed to our Bs. And they're usually numbered as well. So here I've got a 3B, a 4B. Oh, there's a 2H. So here's a 2H. Set that right below my H. This guy's a 3B as well. I think I have 2 of those, just different brands. So the B's stands for black, and that just means that you get more of a darker line because that lead is softer. So if I create a little squiggle side by side with my H, you can see the difference in not only color, but the sharpness. And the numbers, just, it applies toward the softness itself. Oh, this is one more point I feel like I should make. Let me get rid of these that have the caps. So usually I'm going to pick up a charcoal pencil here. You can tell a difference in hardness based off of what is inside this wood sheath here. So like the actual diameter of my graphite or charcoal is wider when it's more soft as opposed to hard. You can see how small this is here. So as long as you don't have a cap or an eraser on some of these, it's just kind of interesting to know like what is within the actual wood carrier here. Okay, so these are my charcoal pencils. And just to show you the difference in softness, these, I feel like people like to call them kind of like scratchy. So they have a scratchy appearance, which means you can kind of see right through it. But super easy to work with medium because they blend so nicely. So as long as you don't mind getting messy, it's really kind of fun to sometimes explore with your charcoal pencils. And you can blend with your finger. I'm actually gonna see if I've got a blending tool. So this here is a blending tool. It's paper that's been wrapped up and glued to assist you rather than you having to messy your fingers. So you can see there it blends really nicely, and it kind of gets rid of that scratchy effect that people are afraid of when they think of charcoal. So cool. And again, like I said, you can totally use your finger to smear too. It just gets a little more messy as you begin to work further on your illustration or artwork. And I would say those are the essential pencils that you'd be working with. But you can branch out from there to explore colored pencils. So let's take a look. Okay, I have many colored pencils. I'm actually, same as regular pencils, I'm going to start with the hardest lead first. So these are my favorite. These are Prismacolor Very Thins. And I have these actually for my pattern making so that I can note which pieces are lining, inner lining, stuff like that, because they mark very clearly and you can keep these to a point. And since it's such a hard lead in here, it doesn't dull as quickly as a soft pencil would. So that just has a harder lead within. And then I've got my real Prismacolors, which these are my trusty set. And you can get these in all different sizes. This is 48 and these are my 36 set. So some of those colors overlap. But the really nice thing is once you wear through one of these pencils, you can see I use my white a lot. They're very easy to replace because you can replace them as just a one-off rather than having to buy an entire set again. But these are a softer lead, and when I illustrate, I like my hands to be like a third or a half way up this actual like pencil shaft here, rather than if I were writing. So I do that as well so that I can actually gain more, let's see, more surface area when I go into color, because I like to color along the side when I fill in an illustration. Though if you wanted more control, you can obviously change the angle of that pencil lead and of your grip. But these are just nicer because It's such a soft lead. Like, you can feel it. I wish you guys could pick up what I'm putting down right now. Just to actually get a grasp on the difference here of the lead. Here's two colors that are the same but sit side by side. And you can see the preciseness of the hard lead versus the soft variability of color here from the soft lead. So super cool. I'm not like anchored to my Prismacolors. They're my favorite, but sometimes if I see something interesting at the store, like these are in, I think, the school aisle at Target. Colorific, I don't even know what that brand is. But this is like a marbled pencil lead. So it's variegated a couple different colors in one. So I'm never closed-minded as to what I'm picking up, because in art, there's nothing right and nothing wrong. It is up to you to decide your style. I don't even know where these came from, but I've had them a while. So erasable pencils, and I'm only bringing these out of the box just to tell you guys, like vellum Bristol paper is really nice because it allows you to kind of beat it up so you can come back and revisit and erase several times without actually tampering with the paper itself. Get these out of the way to show you my favorite of all are my watercolor pencils here. These are so cool. I'm gonna see if I can find my red one. It's a deeper red here because my other one's got a dull point to it right now. But I'm just gonna set this side by side with my other reds. It's almost like more of a terracotta. Maybe I'll stick two side by side so you can see them washed together. Very soft lead. Okay, let's touch that with some water. So you can see that just, I mean, it reacts just like a watercolor would. I love it. But then if I come over here to touch my actual, let's get some of that off the brush. This actual pencil here with my watercolor, you can see it doesn't react the same as the actual watercolor pencil itself. So that's it for pencils. What do I have hiding in here? Okay, it's just my Micron pens. So now I want to share, let's go over, since we went off of watercolors, let's just segue from that to go over brushes. And I've already pulled out many of my watercolor brushes, but just so that you guys can see a difference. Some of these are, well, my oil-based brushes are not in here because I definitely keep them fully separate. But this is a collection of my acrylic and watercolor brushes. I store them flat because I don't want my brush tips to get altered. So you can either store them flat or like up in a jar, but you never want to store them downright. Let's see. There's different sizes in brushes, different types of fiber. Some are stiff, some are hard. I don't know if I said this already, but most are made out of animal fiber, but that's not to say that you can't find a synthetic. But the animal fiber ones will last a really good amount of time, longer than the synthetic ones. And then the watercolor brushes are typically a bit softer than some of the other brushes that may need to carry an acrylic paint. And then here, this one's super cool to look at because it's traditional, what you may think of as like a true brush tip. But you can gain more control in different sizes. This one here fans out. And then these ones a little more control if you're trying to outline. So to go over watercolors, oopsie daisy, I use my actual old school Prang watercolor set, if that's what I'm going for. And these just have cakes in them, so it's just a watercolor cake. And then here I've got some gouache. And gouache comes in little tubes like this. This was a massive set, so I've got almost every color in the book. But when I'm truly working on artwork, I would say the colors I use the most are my primary colors plus white and black. So let's just stick red, blue, and yellow out for now. Super nice with the watercolors is it comes with its own plate here to make your palette. I'm just gonna squeeze some colors into here. Definitely begging to be used. Kind of oily. Okay. The difference between your gouache and your watercolor is transparency. So gouache is more opaque than the watercolors. It's a true cerulean blue. Okay, so these I'm going to first mix them and then I will add water. And that's just my preference, is to get my color established first and then come back in and add the amount of water that I think is necessary to achieve the look I'm going for. And add a little more water so that my brush is a little easier to move around the paper. So you can see this blue completely covers up that purple because of its opaqueness and just that ability. However, now, if I work in one of my cakes, I'm gonna like loosen this up first. So I'm just gonna apply some water to soften the cake overall. And then I'm gonna bring that over to here. And that water, I want to say it's called a flood. It almost just floods a lot quicker than the actual gouache itself. And I mean, part of it is the paint, part of it is the amount of water that you apply to your brush. And like I said, this can be your palette here. So maybe I want a blue-green. And it's cool, here you can see the undercolor of my gouache to the watercolor. But now if I wanted to apply my gouache on top of that watercolor, you almost completely lose the watercolor. So just think of, in terms of layers, what you need to be doing first in order to achieve your looks. I have my box of Crayolas here. Again, I know they may seem elementary, but they're definitely something to keep handy because it's a wax, and with watercolor you can create a wax resist. So maybe I want to come in and create a floral motif on my designs, and that's with a colored crayon, but you can find clear wax as well. And then it just creates a design that is often kind of left behind because it's not really, I don't think it's like necessarily like something that is custom when people are thinking about really what mediums they want to apply together. But it's just so neat to be able to add something in that can create something unique in your look. So just something to think about as you begin to kind of play with your textiles or your mediums here. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about my markers. I'm gonna rinse this out really quick. Okay. So markers are really best on your marker paper. But I'm just going to show here what I've got to work with. I have a grayscale set for my black and white drawings, and yeah, there's a blender marker too, which is super cool. So it's colorless, but it helps blend your actual markers. These Prismacolor they come with a fine tip and a broad tip, more like a chisel. So not a traditional brush, but you can find brush tips. And Prismacolors are nice because they're so vibrant. And they're alcohol based, meaning that they won't smear. So if I were to, if I work heavy with my hand on the paper, I'm not gonna start smearing my ink while working. So it doesn't smear within one another. You can see, because it's alcohol based, it dries quicker. And I can layer easily without having to do it as a process, like a multi-step process. And this marker, my blending marker, I like to use more when I'm doing my skin tones. I think there's like a true skin tone set of Prismacolor markers, just like the pencils I own. So just something to keep in mind while you're looking. Markers are not my favorite medium, so I just don't have the set to show. Let me show you the fine point. So much more control for detailed areas. Let's see, we've got some eyes, maybe we've got some lips here. So much more control here, whereas then you can kind of go in and shade with your chisel tip. And you can use it on point and then slowly rotate this within your hand to get something more thick out of it. So super cool mediums to work with. I just want all your options to be known to you. I'm gonna show one last medium that I have. I did a lot of my drawings in India ink when I was in school. I don't use it much anymore. There's a certain pen for it, and now oh, there it is. Okay, so this is my bamboo pen. Kind of like calligraphy, really. It has this end point to it. So the ink sits here, and then you'd apply pressure in this direction with the bamboo side up. It has a brush here to loosen the ink. So this ink is actually waterproof once it dries. And I'll give you a little glimpse of that. We do not need a lot. So I dropped that into my palette here. And you can use this direct or you can apply water to it, but I usually apply my water after setting it to my paper. So let's just say, got this little figure. Maybe I want to go in, give her a face. So once this ink dries, you cannot manipulate it. I'm gonna add a bit of water now to that ink just to get more of a flow. So if I go in with my brush side now to wet this, I can move that all around. But if I introduce that water to the ink below, beneath that's already set, it will not move. You can also apply the water to the paper first and then come back with your ink, and it will give you a beautiful bleed to it, which is great. Again, say I want to like shade her waist. So just mediums, food for thought, and happy Sunday, guys.